And we've got that report. Bloomberg got the documents which said that as far back as February they were concerned about these fissures because if they're improperly sealed, this is what causes the explosive natural gas to rush up the shaft, which is exactly what happened. And allied to that, you've got Halliburton using this saltwater solution that's the completely improper method of doing this, especially in the knowledge that this is unsafe to begin with. So BP, Halliburton, they're aware of the cracks, they're aware of the fissures, but they're using improper methods. I mean, in this report it talks about how BP were losing a lot of this expensive drilling fluid because of these cracks, and then the later decision was made to use the salt water instead of the drilling fluid by Halliburton because A, it was cheaper, and B, I'm suggesting that they had no motivation in keeping this rig safe. They both financially profited in the millions and ultimately probably in the billions of dollars out of this. And all these links, all this evidence is in the article. Don't believe me, go to the source. It's all there. And not only that, in terms of foreknowledge, as we've talked about before, the Deepwater Horizon managers knew that the rig had major problems before its explosion on April 20th. And the Houston attorney, big oil attorney who's won dozens of cases involving oil companies, he's got somebody on the record who heard a conversation between the Deepwater Horizon installation manager, Tony Busby, and a BP official in Houston. And according to this witness, who Busby's got his statement on record, Harrell was screaming. Harrell is this, he's the manager on the rig. He was screaming to this anonymous BP official as the explosion happened and as the rig was burning, quote, "Are you fucking happy? Are you fucking happy? The rig's on fire. I told you this was gonna happen." They knew it was gonna happen because it was being improperly sealed by the methods that were ordered to be put into place by BP and Halliburton. So all the people on the rig knew it was going to blow. It was no surprise to them when it did. BP and Halliburton, if the people on the rig knew it was going to blow, BP and Halliburton were the ones responsible for the safety procedures. Do you think they knew it was going to blow? So you've got guys on the rig as it's burning saying, "I told you this was effing going to happen. Are you happy?" Like they wanted it to happen, because every measure to stop it happening wasn't done. In addition, we've got British Petroleum's own investigative report. If you go on to page 37, talks about how a hydraulic control system, which is designed to automatically seal the well in the event of an emergency, was modified sometime before the explosion without BP's knowledge or permission. So again, the finger's pointing at Halliburton. It doesn't mention who was responsible for it, but you've got modifications to the very equipment that is supposed to prevent this in case of an emergency. So again, it points to sabotage. As I mentioned previously, just like before 9/11 with the airline trade sinking right before the attack, people made a lot of money out of that. Goldman Sachs, again, now headed by Peter Sutherland, former chairman of BP, dumped 44% of its shares during the first quarter of 2010, during the precise time when they first became aware of the problems with this well. Now, after the explosion, BP shares have lost around 36% of their value. It goes up and down every day, but it's around, 36%. That's $96 million. That's $96 million that Goldman Sachs have made on the back of dumping 44% of their stocks right before this happened. Should someone be looking into that? Well, you be the judge. Tony Hayward, is busy on his yacht race today, current BP CEO sold 1.4 million of his shares in British Petroleum in the weeks before the spill. Does it indicate foreknowledge? That's why there needs to be a criminal investigation of this. So, why would they do it? Why would the federal government and BP, which are tied at the hip, as we shall see, why would they not only allow the explosion to take place by not properly sealing the well, but why would they allow it to be prolonged by refusing the help of foreign companies who can fix the problem within 2 months, as well as telling state bodies, state officials who send out rigs to try and clean up the mess, telling them to turn and go straight back, just as in Hurricane Katrina, when the local authorities tried to respond, they were kicked out by FEMA. What's the motivation behind this? We've explored the financial motivation with BP and Sutherland and Hayward and Halliburton dumping the stocks, buying the company that is then contracted by BP to clean up the oil spill, in the case of Halliburton. But what's the political motivation? Well, you know that Barry Soetoro and the people who pull his strings, because he's just a teleprompter reader, doesn't control anything, too busy playing basketball. You know, people like Rahm Emanuel, Hillary Clinton, don't let a good crisis go to waste, those kind of people. That's exactly what the Obama administration is doing now. We've talked many times about this green economy, this post-industrial revolution, which will be heralded with the carbon tax. Now, the carbon tax over the past few months, certainly since the turn of the year, and ClimateGate, where global warming was completely debunked as the fraud it rightly is, the agenda for a carbon tax has been completely on the ropes. In fact, abandoned by many. We got the intel from the Bilderberg meeting recently, which said that, quote, a Bilderberg member said, quote, "We are just about whipped on climate change." So this was on the ropes, it was being derailed. But now with the oil spill, Obama has had the opportunity to manufacture this contrived emergency as a justification to say we need to reduce our dependence on oil. We need to introduce a green economy. Now, a green economy for Spain has equated to a 20% unemployment figure and 2.2 jobs lost for every one green job created. Now, we've done reports on this before. If a similar green economy is introduced in the United States, and they call it a green economy, it's got nothing to do with the environment. The big oil companies, BP, are pushing it as well, in unison with Obama. This is going to kill the economy. This is going to shave GDP levels to bring us back to a Great Depression level. The investigation into how it would affect America's economy if this, quote, green economy was brought in was devastating. I mean, take Spain and times it by 10. This is going to be horrible. Now, while Obama's claiming to, kick ass and rein in the oil companies like BP, BP itself is one of the founding members of the cap and trade lobby. Look, Washington Examiner. Once a government pet, BP now a capitalist tool. This is the article that you need to read. Let's read a few passages from it. As BP's Deepwater Horizon oil rig was sinking on April 22nd, Senator John Kerry was on the phone with allies in his push for climate legislation, telling them he would soon roll out the Senate climate bill. With the support of utility industry and 3 oil companies, including BP. Oh, so BP's right behind the cap and trade carbon tax agenda, and it's behind everything, as this article points out. It's joined at the hip with the Obama administration, the Bush administration before it. Tax hikes, greenhouse gases, stimulus bill, Wall Street bailout, subsidies for oil pipelines, biofuels, which of course are completely devastating to the environment. They're killing species off out in the third world because they're chopping all the trees down so they can't feed on them for biofuels. BP's behind all of it, in league with Obama.